Today on Amazing Kitchen, we'll be doing a little bit of a review video, not cooking today. So I'll be talking about this Kitchenaid mixer. So I'll be talking about 3 points today. First is history and origin of this Kitchenaid mixer. I'm sure everyone is familiar with this design and probably everyone has one at home already. Then I'll be giving you my take on my thought process on how I came about buying this one. And besides, this is not a new one, so I'll tell you why I chose to buy this one and not over a brand new one. And then third, I'll be showing you some tips and tricks on how to adjust the bowl head relative to the mixer head so that you will get the perfect mix and the clearance inside is perfectly done, as well as little tips and tricks to make your life a little bit easier around the kitchen. Okay, so if you like the sound of that, let's get into this video. So I'll be starting with the origin of the Kitchenaid mixer. In fact, this started by the Hobart electronic company in 1897. And then their first stand-up mixer wasn't done until 1919. That's when this all started. But in the beginning, it wasn't called the Kitchenaid. It was simply called the Hobart H series, C series. This is the K series. Everyone knows it by KSM, K this and K that. So this is the K series. But the first series was the H and the C's. And then it was perfected into the K series that became popular in every household. So how did the name of Kitchenaid came about? Because early on when the engineers came out with a stand mixer, they gave it over to the executives' wives so that they can test it and prototype the machine and let them know on the feedback what they like and what they don't like. And that was when the name Kitchenaid started, because the wives like, I don't care what it's called as long as this Kitchenaid help me in the kitchen, the Kitchenaid. So that's where the name stuck. So it's called the Kitchenaid today. It wasn't until in, I think, the 50s and 60s when different variations of color started. And then this artisan version really blew up, and that's when they had over 40 different colors, so everyone can customize their home with every mixer color of their choice. So this started with Hobart Electronics, and then they eventually sold it to Dart and Craft in 1981. Then in turn, they sold the Kitchenaid department of this mixer to Whirlpool in 1986 for $150 million. That was when Whirlpool owns it until now. And why everyone was so attracted to this was because of this streamline and this smooth curve. Even though in the market there are many different stand mixers today that was produced by different brands, but somehow Kitchenaid got majority of the market share. It's because they have a lot of colors, and this was very classic because they started on early, and this shape and streamlinedness people enjoy a lot. So eventually people got enough of it. It was easy to find parts, easy to find used machines, easy to get it replaced, and everyone has one, and it was working marvelously. It doesn't break down, it's very reliable. You can own one of these for over 10 years. So that will lead to the next topic when I talk about why I chose this one. So this one is the KSM 150 or 5 KSM 150. The 5 signifies it's 220 to 250 volt. So if you're using 110 volt, then probably it doesn't have the 5 in front. So it will be just KSM 150. But because this one is 220 volt to 250, it is 5 KSM 150. So this is a 300 watt, 4.8 liter, 9 cup flour maximum mixer. So the newer artisan versions of this mixer is 325 watts. This one is 300 watts. So it's right between the new artisan ones as well as the classic and classic plus. Those were 275 watts. So 300 I think is the minimum you want to go with, because anything less, I think the machine is struggling a bit, because I usually make dough or bread, about 5 cups of flour for my bread, and this machine has no problem churning through and kneading this. So this has a limit of 9 cups, but I've never tried yet, but with 5 cups it's not a problem. So 300 watts is more than sufficient. 325 is even better, but 275 I think is just a bit lacking. So the reason why Kitchenaid can get away with less wattage and also able to produce the same result like some other competitors that has 1000 watts and 1200 watts is because the motor design in this is a direct drive. So what it means is the motor is right here and is connected by gears directly to this spin head. And because it's directly linked, so there's almost no loss of power transfer from the motor to the mixing head. And that's the reason why they can get away with a lower wattage of power, because they're able to maintain the torque. So torque is key, because when you're mixing bread, it's about the spinning motion, and that's torque. So if you have sufficient torque, then you'll be able to turn that dough. Now, of course, 1000 watt is better, but 300 will do just fine. That's why these are so affordable, and every household owns one, and they don't struggle. And because of the low wattage and the direct drive and the design, these last forever. These are built like a tank. I mean, look at this. This thing is heavy. This is 10 kilogram. So when this is in use, if you don't abuse it and overwork it, this should last you for a lifetime. I mean, there's some wear and tear in the parts, but those can easily be sourced online and you can replace it on your own. So it's very easy, or you can send it out to get a service. I mean, the reason why I got a used one and not a brand new one, there are several reasons. The first of all is cost. I got this at 50% off of a brand new one. So I thought, since these last forever, I mean, it's okay to get a used one that is not terribly abused, and I can basically maintain this and then repair and replace parts as I need. So that's number one reason why I got this used one instead of a brand new one. And second reason is this. If you haven't already noticed, let me take this off. If you look at this head, right, this has this little cup and a spring on it. The newer versions doesn't have this, and they removed this, I think, for the reason of aesthetics, as well as probably some people are complaining when they're making bread, the dough gets up here and it gets stuck on the spring and on this cover, and it becomes difficult to clean. So they removed this on the later models. But this, being about 3 years old, it still has the spring. And when I went out looking for one of these machines, I specifically looked for this feature. I want the spring and this cap. Yeah, it doesn't look as beautiful as the newer ones, but there's a reason why I want this. In the newer models, without the spring and this cap, what happened is when the dough hook or even the paddle is on, when this is spinning and is under load, the spring and the cap is keeping this from moving up and down. Now without the spring and cap, what it'll do, it's locked this way, this won't fall out, but the problem is under heavy load when making a bread, heavy dough, this will rock a bit and it will cause a little clonking sound. You hear it go clunk, 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 clunk. And some people wonder why the newer machines all produce that. And the reason is because this spring and this cap prevent this motion up and down, the vertical motion, from happening, or not as easy. I mean, it still moves, but it's not as easy as if the spring and the cap wasn't there. So that was one major reason why I chose this machine with this cap, because I don't want this clonking sound. Imagine I'm baking bread, you know, in the middle of the night, and then this thing is going tak, 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 tak. It's just irritating. You know, it has to go on kneading for 5-10 minutes. So I don't want that happening. So I specifically chose this one with a cap and spring on. The newer models doesn't have it. I mean, if I want, I can remove this also, but I specifically chose this machine because it has this cap on. And only the older models has it. The newer model removed it. I think it's for aesthetics reason, because people think it's more beautiful and it's easier to put this on, so then you don't have to go and search for that little side pin. This older model, it comes with a guard, but this guard is a 2-piece guard instead of a 1-piece. I think the newer guard design is better. This older design is easy to clean, but the problem is because it's 2-piece, it gets a little clunky when putting in and taking out. I think the newer version, you just put it over your bowl, and then when you don't need it, you just remove it. It's much easier. So that's one good design of the newer one. And then other than that, I mean, it's pretty much the same. The motor is slightly weaker, it's at 300 watt, but you don't feel much of a lacking. And the bowl, this is a 5-quart bowl or 4.8 liter bowl. So the classic, I think, is a 4.5 quart, which is about 4.2 liter. So it's slightly smaller. This one, I think I want at least a 5-quart bowl because I will be making a lot of bread as well as a lot of cakes. So I want at least this size. I love it to be slightly bigger, maybe 5.5 liter or maybe even 6, but this one is sufficient for now. And then because this is also a tilt head, it's easy to store and it's beautiful to look at. I mean, this is white, so it matches every home. So it's easy to sell if I want to sell this in the future, but I think I'll be keeping this for quite a long time. Why I got a Kitchenaid and why this one is because of its functions. I mean, it has a lot of little features. You remove this cap and then you can attach all different kind of heads. You can have sifters, some grinders, you can make pastas with it, even ice cream. I mean, there's so many choices. So here are some options if I want to use it. I don't intend to use it, but it's there if I need to. So that is one beautiful thing about the Kitchenaid mixer. And then another reason why I got the Kitchenaid and not the other brands is because I watch a lot of reviews online, and some of the brands does better in certain things than others, but this well-rounded machine does good in every category, especially bread making. It has no problem and it's affordable and it works. This one weighs about 10 kilogram. Some of the competitors weigh less. You want at least 10 kilogram, 10 to 11 kilogram is because when you're mixing heavy doughs, this might rock back and forth. And you don't want this running on your countertop, right? Or even on your table, because this could be dangerous if it falls off. So this, with a little bit of a weight, it keeps the head down, it keeps the whole body planted on the counter or the table that you're using it on, and it has no problem of it falling or running off. Some of the competitor brands I see, they're a bit light, so when you're mixing dough, they tend to move a lot on the counter, and that is something I don't want also. And another reason is this is built very simple. It's very mechanical. Everything is adjustable. If something breaks, you can easily replace the parts, and it's easily affordable to be found online, right? Or even like these hooks, you know, like the dough hook, or even the beater and the whisk. I mean, these, if I ever break one, it's very easy to replace because there are tons of it online and everyone sells it. So for convenience, and know that when I invest in one of these machines, I'm in it for quite some time and I don't have no problem replacing parts or even repairing it on my own. Okay, so let's move on to the next section. The next section is on tips and tricks on how to adjust the bowl head height, as well as little tips on how to make your life a little easier when using this and storing this machine. All right, so let's start with adjusting the head. What happened is you have these different paddle, whisk, or even the bread hook, and they are slightly at a different height, and you want the clearance at the bottom of the bowl with this to be just about 2 millimeter, 1.5 to 2 millimeter, but each one of these could be slightly off because when you use it, maybe wear and tear, the thing moves, or the screw inside turns a bit, but you can always adjust this and bring it back to your tolerance. So I'll be showing you how to do that today, right now. Now, the first thing you need to do is remove any of these paddles or whisk, and then below, if you have the tilt head version, the screw is right at the bottom underneath the motor. You'll see a little screw right there, and you simply take that and you turn it. When you turn it to clockwise direction, which is this way, you will lower it. And if you turn it counterclockwise, you raise the bowl. So depending on which version you have, this applies to all the Artisan tilt head version. And generally, a quarter turn to a half a turn is more than sufficient because it already come adjusted. If it's off, it's just off by a little bit. So a quarter turn to a half turn is more than sufficient to get it back into alignment for whether you're whisking or even bread dough making. Because if this is off, it'll take longer for you to whisk the egg white, let's say, to a stiff peak. And if it's off, even for your bread dough, it is much more difficult to get it come together to knead. It might stick to this hook, or the dough might be stuck to the bottom of the bowl and doesn't want to pull off. If you see that, then maybe it's not your machine, but rather it's the adjustment of your machine tilt head. So now that you know where to find the screw, next time if anything is off, you know you can adjust it on your own. And this applies to the 600 series, which is the Pro series, or the smaller one, which is the Artisan Mini also. So remember, if this is off, you can adjust it on your own, and it's not the machine, you don't need to get rid of it yet. But make sure you don't adjust it too low. What will happen is if the tilt head is lowered too much, what will happen is when you're mixing this, you will see that the head starts to rock. When the head starts to rock like this, there's a chance that this is tilted too low down, that this is bottoming out at the bowl. And every time it spins, it hits a spot, it pushes it up, and you don't want that. So if this is rocking too much, then it's probably too low. But also you don't want it to be too high up, because if it's too high up, then this locking pin cannot lock properly, and then this head might just pull off while you're mixing. And you don't want this to happen, because if this is happening, this is very dangerous. So make sure it's adjusted just right, not too low where it rocks, and not too high where this pin cannot lock. So that is it for this adjustment. But let's say if you have all that adjusted and everything is in place, and you still notice that this pin on this side, which is holding the head to the body, and you notice this is rocking itself out sometime, and this is also wiggling while you're mixing, then there's another screw you can adjust. So let's tilt this to the side, and if you look inside here, right, there's another screw that connects this block from the head to the bottom, and you have to tighten that screw. Maybe the screw got a little loose over time from use, so you just simply take a long screwdriver and just tighten it up, and this will stop rocking from side to side, up and down, and this will keep the pin from also working its way out of the machine. So those are little adjustments you can do to your machine. And even if this speed is not spinning right, you can pull off the cap, and then there's a screw. You can adjust the screw in and out to adjust the rotation per minute on this. But generally, you don't need to do that, because these already come calibrated and it's working just fine. So don't touch it if you don't have to. Here's another thing. This is a tip I learned, that when you store this machine, what happens is this cord tend to dangle all around, and usually how people store it is they just dump it back in the bowl. But what happens is, if I clean this bowl very clean, I want it to be always clean for the next use. I don't want this dirty little plug to be inside my bowl, so then next time, every time I take it out to use, I have to clean it again. So what I end up doing is that you can actually fold this up nicely, all right, and then store it behind the machine, just like this. There you go. It's stored nicely, it's tucked away, and it doesn't dangle and get in your way. So as you see, I have one of these, like desk organizer for your computer cords. I just double-sided one of these to the side of this machine, or to the back of the machine where it's hidden, and then I simply roll the cord up and then clip this, and voila, it's done. Very easy. I can transport this. I don't have cords dangling around, and it's beautiful because when it's stored this way, you don't really see the cord, and it looks beautiful on your counter wherever you're storing it. Okay, well, I think that's about it for this machine. I mean, everyone already have one, I believe, or if not, you have a competitor's brand. So it's not much for me to say other than it is very useful. It makes my life a lot easier. I've been making a lot of bread. I made cake the other day, but If you don't already have one, consider getting one. Whether it's KitchenAid or a competitor brand, it makes your life a lot easier when you're making bread as well as cake. But I prefer and I recommend the KitchenAid brand because I've been using it. I see a lot of people using it, and it's no one been complaining about it. Everyone likes it very much. But if you're a serious bread maker, I would consider the bigger brother of this, maybe the 600 Pro series. That might be better suited for bread making. It has a little bit more power, a bigger bowl, and this head doesn't wiggle back and forth. But if not, if you're just making it for your friends and family occasionally, I think this is more than sufficient, and it's very good to use. And it comes in many different beautiful colors to match your counter or your home. So the white is very universal, but feel free, find the one that you like in your color of your preference and pick it up. If you see a deal, don't think twice, just go for it. All right, well, that's it for my review and talk on KitchenAid. I hope you like this one. If you like it a lot, give it a thumbs up, and make sure you subscribe and share this video with your friends and family or anyone that you think that might find this information very useful. Okay, well, until next time, we'll see you again. Bye now.